Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the human ship Star Runner, watching the alien world grow larger through the main window. The planet looked like a giant blue diamond spinning in space. Crystal towers rose from its surface like frozen lightning, catching the light of 3 suns and throwing rainbows across the sky. "First time seeing Zephyria Prime, sir?" asked Lieutenant Danny Brooks, the ship's pilot. His hands moved over the controls as they approached the planet. "First time for all of us," Jake replied. He wiped sweat from his forehead. The weight of what they were doing pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. Earth had sent them here to make friends with the Zephyrians. No human had ever met these aliens face-to-face before. The communications officer, Maria Santos, looked up from her station. "Captain, we're getting another message from the planet. They want us to follow their escort ships to the Royal Palace." Through the window, Jake could see the Zephyrian ships. They looked like flying jewels, smooth and bright, with no visible weapons or engines. They moved through space as if they were dancing. "Follow them in," Jake ordered. He turned to face his crew. "Remember, we're here to make peace. These aliens have never seen humans before. We need to show them our best side." In the back of the bridge, Corporal Ben Harris checked his rifle for the 3rd time. The young Marine had grown up on a farm in Montana, far from cities and space. Ships. His hands were rough from years of hard work, and his brown hair was cut short in military style. He had joined the mission as part of the security team, but he felt out of place among all the diplomats and scientists. "Nervous, Ben?" asked Sergeant Amy Foster, the team leader. She had been in the Marines for 10 years and had seen action on 3 different worlds. "A little," Ben admitted. "I've never been this far from Earth before, and I've never met any aliens." "Just remember your training," Amy said. "Keep your eyes open and your mouth shut. Let the captain do the talking." The Star Runner shook gently. As it entered the planet's atmosphere, the crystal towers grew larger and more beautiful as they descended. The air itself seemed to shimmer with different colors, and Ben could hear a soft humming sound coming through the ship's hull. "That's their music," explained Dr. Lisa Park, the mission's alien expert. She was a small woman with thick glasses, who had spent years studying Zephyrian culture from radio signals. "They communicate through sound and light. Everything on their world is built around harmony." The ship landed on a platform made of smooth crystal that seemed to sing under their weight. Jake looked out at the reception committee waiting for them. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, almost 7 feet high, with skin that glowed with soft light. They wore flowing robes that changed color as they moved, and their faces were kind but strange, with large eyes and no visible mouths. "Remember," Jake told his team, "no sudden movements. Dr. Park says they're peaceful, but we don't want to frighten them." The airlock opened with a hiss, and the humans stepped onto the crystal platform. The air was warm and sweet, filled with the sound of gentle music that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Zephyrians approached slowly, their bodies pulsing with waves of blue and green light. The leader of the aliens was clearly important. His robes were brighter than the others, and a crown of living crystal grew from his head. He spoke in a voice like wind chimes, and the universal translator in Jake's ear turned his words into English. "Welcome, travelers from the world called Earth. I am Emperor Valdris of the Zephyrian Empire. We have waited long to meet you." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly.
"Thank you, Your Majesty."
"I am Captain Jake Miller, representing the United Earth Government. We come in peace, hoping to build friendship between our peoples." The Emperor's light pulsed with what Dr. Park had said was pleasure. "Come, let us go to the palace. There is much to discuss." They walked through the Crystal City, past towers that sang in harmony, and streets that glowed with inner light. The Zephyrians they passed stopped to stare at the humans, their bodies flickering with curious colors. As children peeked out from behind their parents, their small forms glowing like candles. Ben had never seen anything so beautiful. The whole city was like a living song, with every building and street adding its voice to the music. He felt clumsy and loud compared to these graceful beings who moved like dancers. The Royal Palace was the most beautiful building Ben had ever seen. It was made of crystal that sang different notes as they walked through it, creating a melody that told the story of the Zephyrian people. The walls showed pictures made of light, depicting their history and culture. The throne room was huge, with a ceiling that reached up like the inside of a mountain. The emperor's throne was carved from a single piece of crystal that blazed with inner fire. Dozens of Zephyrian nobles stood around the edges of the room, their robes creating a rainbow of shifting colors. "Now," said Emperor Valdris, settling onto his throne, "let us begin the ceremony of first meeting. It is our custom to share harmony with new friends." Jake nodded, though he wasn't sure what that meant. Dr. Park had explained some Zephyrian customs, but there was still much they didn't understand about these aliens. The Emperor raised his hands, and the room filled with beautiful music. The crystal walls began to glow brighter, and the air itself seemed to dance with light and sound. The humans stood still, amazed by the beauty of it all. Then, from somewhere in the palace, came a sound that cut through the harmony like a knife. It was harsh and loud and full of pain. The beautiful music stopped, and the Zephyrians cried out. In distress, the sound came again, and Ben realized what it was. Somewhere in the palace, a baby was crying. The crying sound pierced through the crystal palace like a broken bell. The beautiful harmony that had filled the throne room died away, leaving only the harsh wails echoing off the walls. The Zephyrian nobles pressed their hands to their ears, their glowing skin flickering with colors that Dr. Park had never seen before. Emperor Valdris rose from his throne, his tall form shaking with distress. The crystal crown on his head was pulsing with angry red light. "No, no, this cannot be happening," he said, his voice filled with pain. "Not during the sacred meeting." The crying grew louder, and several of the Zephyrian nobles collapsed too. Their knees, their bodies were flashing with chaotic lights, and they made sounds of deep suffering. Captain Jake Miller looked around in confusion, not understanding what was happening. "Your Majesty," Jake said, stepping forward. "What's wrong? How can we help?" "It is my daughter," the Emperor said, his voice breaking like glass. "Princess Liraleth. She has been sick for many days, crying without rest. Our healers cannot help her. The sound of her pain is breaking our harmony." More Zephyrians fell to the floor, unable to bear the harsh noise. The crying was getting worse, coming in waves that made the crystal walls crack and sing off keynotes. Ben Harris watched the aliens suffer and felt his heart break for them. He had never seen such pain before. "We must end this meeting," Emperor Valdris said, his lights flashing with desperate colors. "Your presence here has made the curse worse. You must leave our world at once." "Wait," Dr. Park said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "This might not be a curse. Let us help. We have experience with children on Earth." "No," the Emperor said firmly. "Your kind brings discord. The princess was fine until your ships came near our world. You have corrupted her harmony with your chaotic human energy." The Zephyrian guards moved forward, their bodies glowing with warning colors. They carried weapons that looked like singing crystals, beautiful but deadly. Captain Miller raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Please, Your Majesty," Jake said. "We came here in peace. We don't want to cause harm to anyone, especially not to a child." The crying from the palace grew even louder, and more Zephyrians collapsed. The sound was like nails on glass, painful even to human ears. Ben could see the Emperor's pain in the chaotic flashing of his lights. The alien ruler was torn between his duty to his people and his love for his daughter. "The child suffers," Emperor Valdris said, his voice barely above a whisper. "For 7 days and 7 nights, she has known no peace. Our greatest healers have tried everything. Nothing works. The harmony of her spirit is broken." Ben stepped forward without thinking. He had been quiet during the whole meeting, following orders to let the officers do the talking. But the sound of that crying baby pulled at something deep inside him. He knew that sound. He had heard it before. "Sir Ben," said to Captain Miller. "Permission to speak." "Corporal, now is not the time," Jake replied, his eyes on the advancing guards. "Captain, please," Ben said, his voice stronger now. I know about crying babies. I raised 4 little brothers and sisters after our parents died. Maybe I can help. The Emperor's lights flashed with surprise. You, a warrior? What could you know of healing? Ben ignored the shocked looks from his fellow humans. He had always been the quiet one, the farm boy who followed orders and stayed in the background. But this was different. This was about a baby who needed help. I don't know about healing, Your Majesty, Ben said, his rough hands clenched at his sides. But I know about babies, and that baby sounds scared and lonely, not cursed. Corporal Harris, stand down, Sergeant Foster ordered. You're out of line. But Ben was already moving. He walked past the guards, past the surprised captain, past the collapsed nobles. The Zephyrians were too shocked to stop him. No one had ever ignored their Emperor's orders before, especially not an alien visitor. Where is she? Ben asked, looking directly at Emperor Valdris. Where is the princess? The Emperor's lights flickered with confusion and anger. You dare to disobey your own leaders? You dare to approach the royal child without permission? I dare because she's crying, Ben said simply. And no baby should cry alone. The sound of the princess's wails grew louder, as if she could hear the conversation. The crystal walls began to crack under the pressure of her distress. Several more Zephyrians fainted, their bodies unable to handle the chaotic noise. This is madness, said High Counselor Zenthus, one of the Emperor's advisors. His tall form was rigid with anger, and his robes flashed with warning colors. The human brings more discord to our sacred halls. Remove him at once. But Emperor Valdris held up his hand, stopping the guards. His large eyes studied Ben's face. Searching for something? You truly believe you can help her? A human soldier can do what our greatest healers cannot. I don't know, Ben admitted, but I'd like to try. Please, let me try. The crying reached a new level of intensity, and the remaining standing Zephyrians swayed on their feet. The beautiful throne room was becoming a place of chaos and pain. The Emperor looked around at his suffering people, then back at Ben. Very well, he said finally. But if you fail, if you make her worse, you and your people will be banished. From our space forever. Do you understand? Ben nodded. I understand, Your Majesty. Just take me to her. The Emperor turned and walked toward a door hidden behind his throne. Ben followed, ignoring the angry shouts from Captain Miller and the worried calls from his team. Behind him, the other humans argued with the remaining Zephyrians. But Ben could only hear the sound of the crying baby calling to him as they walked through the crystal corridors. The crying grew louder and more desperate. Ben's heart pounded. In his chest, he had no idea what he was doing or how he could help an alien baby. All he knew was that somewhere in this beautiful palace, a child was in pain, and he had to try to make it better. The crystal corridors of the palace sang with broken notes as Ben followed Emperor Valdris deeper into the royal chambers. The crying grew louder with each step, and Ben could feel the sound vibrating through his bones. The walls around them flickered with chaotic lights, responding to the distressed wails echoing through the halls. She has been like this for 7 days, the Emperor said as they walked. His voice was heavy with exhaustion and worry. My healers say her life force is scattered, her harmony broken. We have tried every cure known to our people. They passed. Rooms filled with strange medical equipment that hummed and glowed. Ben saw Zephyrian doctors working frantically, their bodies pulsing with desperate colors as they mixed potions and adjusted crystal devices. None of them looked up as the Emperor passed. They were too focused on their failing attempts to help. The princess. What do your healers think is wrong with her? Ben asked, trying to keep his voice steady over the crying. They say it is a curse of discord, Emperor Valdris replied. Something has broken the natural harmony of her spirit. Cannot find peace, cannot rest, cannot stop the chaos inside her. They reached a door made of pure white crystal that sang a sad, low note. The Emperor placed his hand on it, and it opened silently. Inside was the most beautiful nursery Ben had ever seen. The walls were made of soft, glowing crystal that should have been peaceful and calm. But the crying had turned the gentle lights into a storm of flashing colors. In the center of the room stood a cradle carved from a single piece of singing crystal. It was floating 3 feet off the ground, supported by beams of pure light. Inside the cradle was the source of all the chaos. Princess Lireleth was tiny, no bigger than a human baby, but she glowed with the same inner light as her father. Her skin flickered between different colors so fast it hurt to look at. Her cries were not just sound but also bursts of light that made the crystal walls ring like broken bells. "She is beautiful," Ben said, and he meant it. Even in her distress, the little princess was amazing to see. "It was our greatest joy," the emperor said sadly. "But now she brings only pain to our people. The harmony of the entire palace is broken because of her suffering." Ben stepped closer to the floating cradle. The princess's crying grew even louder, as if she could sense his presence. Her tiny arms reached toward the ceiling, and her light pulsed with colors that Ben had never seen before. "Has anyone tried just holding her?" Ben asked. The emperor looked shocked. "Holding her, but she is in the sacred cradle. It is designed to keep her in perfect harmony with the crystal song of our world." "Maybe that's the problem," Ben said quietly. He had an idea, but he wasn't sure if it was right. On Earth, babies need to be held. They need contact with other people. They need to feel safe and loved. But the sacred cradle provides everything she needs, the emperor protested. Food, warmth, protection, harmony. It is the most advanced childcare system in our empire. Ben looked at the cradle again. It was beautiful and perfect, but it was also cold and distant. The little princess was alone inside it, surrounded by crystal and light, but with no one to touch her or hold her close. "Your Majesty," Ben said carefully, "can I try something? I promise I won't hurt her." The emperor hesitated. His lights flickered with uncertainty and fear. "If you make her worse, my people will demand your death." "I understand," Ben said, "but I think she's not cursed. I think she's just lonely." Before the emperor could stop him, Ben reached into the floating cradle. The moment his rough, human hands touched the princess, something amazing happened. Her chaotic flashing slowed down, and her crying changed from harsh wails to curious whimpers. "Impossible," the emperor whispered. Ben lifted the tiny princess out of her crystal cradle. She was warm and light, glowing softly against his chest. Her little hands grabbed at his uniform, and her large eyes looked up at his face with wonder. "Hey there, little one," Ben said softly. "You've been having a hard time, haven't you?" Princess made a small sound, not quite a cry, but not quite a coo. Her lights were still flashing, but they were slower now, more like a gentle pulse than a chaotic storm. Ben began to rock her gently, the way he had rocked his baby sister when she was small. He started humming an old song his grandmother had taught him, a simple lullaby about hush, little baby, and mockingbirds. The effect was immediate and magical. The princess's lights began to match the rhythm of Ben's humming. Her cries faded to soft murmurs and then to silence. For the first time in 7 days, Princess Lireleth was quiet. "How is this possible?" Emperor Valdris asked, his voice filled with wonder. Ben kept rocking the baby, afraid to break the spell. "I think she needed something your machines couldn't give her. She needed someone to care about her, not just take care of her." The princess yawned, a tiny sound that made both men smile. Her lights dimmed to a soft, steady glow, and her breathing became slow and peaceful. She was falling asleep in Ben's arms. "But you are human," the emperor said. "You have no harmony, no connection to our crystal song. How can you give her what our healers cannot?" Ben looked down at the sleeping princess. Maybe that's exactly what she needed. Something different. Something that didn't try to make her perfect. From somewhere in the palace, Ben could hear voices calling. The other humans were looking for him, probably worried about what had happened. But he didn't want to move. Little princess was finally at peace, and he was afraid that putting her down would start the crying again. "She needs contact," Ben said quietly. "She needs to feel connected to someone who cares about her. Your crystal cradle is beautiful, but it's not alive. It can't love her." Emperor Valdris stared at his daughter, sleeping peacefully in the arms of a human soldier. Everything he had believed about harmony and perfection was being challenged by this simple act of kindness. "What do we do now?" the Emperor asked. 3 days had passed since Ben first held Princess Lireleth, and the royal palace had become a very different place. The harsh crying that had filled the crystal halls was gone, replaced by the gentle sounds of a happy baby learning to play. Ben sat in the nursery, the little princess on his lap as he showed her a simple game. "Peekaboo," he said, covering his face with his hands and then pulling them away. The princess giggled, a sound like tiny silver bells, and her skin glowed with bright yellow light. Again, she said in her musical voice. It was one of the few human words she had learned, but she said it often. Everything was new and exciting to her now that she had someone to share it with. Emperor Valdris watched from the doorway, still amazed by what he was seeing. His daughter was not just healthy now, she was thriving. Her lights were brighter, her sounds more varied, and her curiosity seemed to grow stronger every day. "The healers want to study what you have done," the Emperor said, stepping into the room. "They cannot understand how you succeeded where they failed." Ben looked up from the game, still holding the princess securely. "I don't think there's much to study, Your Majesty. She just needed someone to pay attention to her." Dr. Lisa Park entered the nursery carrying a tablet full of notes. She had been observing Ben and the princess for days, trying to understand what was happening. "Actually, I think there's a lot more to it than that," she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "What do you mean?" Ben asked. "I've been watching how Princess Lireleth responds to different things," Dr. Park explained. "When the Zephyrian healers tried to help her, they used perfect harmonies, exact frequencies, precise light patterns. Everything was mathematically correct." The princess reached for Dr. Park's tablet, making curious chirping sounds. Ben gently guided her hands away from the device. "But when you sing to her or talk to her," Dr. Park continued, "your voice is imperfect. It wavers, changes tone, has emotion in it. And that's exactly what she needs." Emperor Valdris looked confused. "How can imperfection be better than perfection?" "Because babies need variation to develop properly," Dr. Park said. "On Earth, we know that children learn best when they experience different sounds, sights, and feelings. Too much sameness actually slows down their growth." Ben nodded, remembering his younger siblings. "My little sister used to get fussy when everything was too quiet. She needed noise and activity around her to be happy." The princess babbled something in her own language, then tried to copy the sound Ben had just made. It came out as a mix of human speech and Zephyrian harmonics, creating something entirely new. "Did you hear that?" Dr. Park said excitedly. "She's creating hybrid communication. She's mixing human vocal patterns with her own natural abilities. Is that good or bad?" the Emperor asked worriedly. "It's amazing," Dr. Park replied. "She's becoming something new, something that bridges our two species." Over the following days, word spread through the palace about the human soldier who had saved the princess. Other Zephyrians began to visit the nursery, curious about these strange aliens who could do what their advanced medicine could not. The first to come was Counselor Veth, an elderly Zephyrian who had children of his own. He watched as Ben played simple games with the princess, teaching her to clap her hands and make silly faces. "My own grandchildren have never shown such joy," Veth said quietly. "They're obedient and harmonious, but they lack the spark I see in the princess now." "Maybe they need someone to play with them," Ben suggested. "To teach them games and songs?" "Games?" Veth looked puzzled. "What are games?" Ben grinned. "Want me to show you?" Soon, more Zephyrian children began coming to the nursery. Ben taught them simple earth games like patty cake and hide-and-seek. The children loved the new activities, their lights flashing with excitement as they learned to play. Sergeant Amy Foster joined Ben in the nursery one afternoon, watching him work with a group of young Zephyrians. "You're good at this," she said. "I never knew you had such a gift with kids." "I had to learn," Ben replied, helping a shy Zephyrian child learn to play catch with a soft crystal ball. "After our parents died, it was just me and my 4 younger brothers and sisters. I was only 16, but I had to take care of them. It must have been hard," Amy said. "It was," Ben admitted. "But it taught me that kids need more than just food and shelter. They need someone to care about them, to play with them, to make them feel special." The Zephyrian children were laughing now, a sound that had never been heard in the palace before. Their parents watched in wonder as their perfect, quiet children became noisy and energetic. Not everyone was happy about the changes. High Counselor Xanthus arrived at the nursery with several stern-looking advisors. His tall form was rigid with disapproval, and his robes flashed with angry colors. "This chaos must stop," he declared. "These human influences are corrupting our children. They are losing their harmony, their discipline, their proper Zephyrian nature." "But they're happy," Ben said, still holding Princess Lireleth. "Look at them. They're learning and growing and having fun." "Fun is not the Zephyrian way," Xanthus replied coldly. "We value order, harmony, perfection. These games and noises you teach them are destroying thousands of years of culture." Emperor Valdris entered the room, drawn by the raised voices. He saw his daughter playing peacefully with Ben, saw the other children laughing and learning, and saw the anger in Xanthus's face. "Counselor," the Emperor said carefully, "my daughter is healthier than she has ever been." "How can that be wrong?" "Because it comes at the cost of our very identity," Xanthus replied. "If we allow this human corruption to continue, we will lose everything that makes us Severian." The room fell silent, except for the soft babbling of the princess. She looked up at the angry counselor and made a sad sound, as if she could sense the tension in the air. "There must be a way to prove which path is right," Emperor Valdris said slowly. "A test that will show whether human methods help or harm our children." Xanthus's eyes gleamed with cold light. "Yes," he said. "The trial of resonance. Let the princess face the ancient test. If she can achieve perfect harmony with the imperial crystal, then perhaps there is value in these human ways. But if she fails, all human influences must be removed from our world forever." The Great Hall of Resonance was the most sacred place in the Zephyrian Empire. Ben had never seen anything like it before. The massive room was carved from a single piece of crystal that reached up higher than a 20-story building. Center stood the imperial crystal, a towering structure that pulsed with ancient power. "This is where we will hold the trial," Emperor Valdris explained to the assembled crowd. Hundreds of Zephyrians filled the hall, their robes creating a sea of shifting colors. Human diplomats stood to one side, looking small and nervous among the tall aliens. Ben held Princess Lireleth close to his chest. She had been fussy all morning, sensing the tension around her. Now she looked up at the giant crystal with wide eyes, making soft, worried sounds. "The trial of resonance has been used for 1,000 years to test the harmony of our people," High Counselor Xanthus announced. His voice echoed through the crystal hall. "The princess must achieve perfect resonance with the imperial crystal. If she succeeds, we will know her spirit is pure. If she fails, the human corruption will be proven." Dr. Lisa Park stepped forward. "What exactly does she have to do?" "She must sing the Song of Unity," Xanthus replied. "Every Zephyrian child learns this song. It is the foundation of our harmony. The imperial crystal will judge whether her song is pure or tainted." "Oh, but she's just a baby," Ben protested. "She can barely talk, let alone sing a complicated song." "A pure Zephyrian child can sing the Song of Unity from birth," Xanthus said coldly. "If the princess cannot, it proves that human influence has damaged her natural abilities." Emperor Valdris looked torn between worry for his daughter and loyalty to his people's traditions. "The trial is fair," he said quietly. "If my daughter is truly healthy, she will pass. If not, then perhaps the humans have indeed harmed her." Captain Jake Miller moved to Ben's side. "This isn't right," he whispered. "They're setting her up to fail. We should take our people and leave." "No," Ben said firmly. "She can do this. I believe in her." The crowd grew quiet as the trial began. Ancient Zephyrian priests activated the imperial crystal, and it began to glow with brilliant light. The whole hall filled with a deep, thrumming sound that seemed to come from the heart of the planet itself. "Bring the princess forward," Xanthus commanded. Ben walked slowly toward the crystal, his boots echoing on the smooth floor. Princess Lireleth clung to his uniform, her small body trembling with fear. The massive crystal towered above them, its light growing brighter with each step. "Place her before the crystal," Xanthus ordered. "She must face the trial alone." Ben looked down at the frightened baby in his arms. She was so small, so vulnerable. The idea of leaving her alone in front of that huge crystal felt wrong in every way. "I can't," Ben said. "She's scared. Look at her." "The trial requires solitude," Xanthus insisted. "No outside influence can be allowed." "But that's exactly the problem," Dr. Park said suddenly. "Don't you see? Babies aren't meant to be alone. They need support, comfort, someone to help them. Feel safe." "Human weakness," Xanthus replied. "True strength comes from standing alone in perfect harmony." Emperor Valdris raised his hand for silence. "The ancient rules are clear. The child must face the crystal without assistance." Ben felt his heart breaking as he looked at the princess. She was babbling anxiously, her lights flashing with distress. All the progress they had made over the past weeks seemed about to be lost. "It's okay, little one," Ben whispered to her. "You're stronger than they know. You can do this." With great reluctance, Ben placed Princess Lirleth on the crystal platform in front of the imperial crystal. The moment he stepped back, she began to cry. Not the harsh, chaotic wails from before, but the frightened sobs of a baby who didn't understand why she had been left alone. The imperial crystal responded to her distress by glowing brighter and making a deep, angry sound. The assembled Zephyrians murmured with worry. This was not how the trial was supposed to begin. "Sing the song of unity," Xanthus commanded. "Show us your true nature, princess." But the princess only cried harder. She reached toward Ben with her tiny arms, calling for him in her mixed language of human words and Zephyrian harmonics. The crystal's light grew harsh and cold, rejecting her chaotic emotions. "She is failing," one of the priests announced. "The crystal finds no harmony in her spirit." "Wait," Ben said desperately. "Give her a chance. She just needs a moment to calm down." "The trial has begun," Xanthus said with satisfaction. "The crystal's judgment is clear. The human influence has corrupted her beyond redemption." Ben watched. The little princess crying alone on the platform, and something inside him snapped. He didn't care about trials or traditions or diplomatic consequences. He only cared about a frightened baby who needed help. "No," Ben said loudly, his voice carrying. "Across the hall? This is wrong." He started walking toward the princess, ignoring the shocked gasps from the crowd. Guards moved to stop him, but Emperor Valdris held up his hand. "Let him speak," the emperor said. Ben stopped just outside the crystal platform. "Princess Lirleth," he called, "remember our songs? Remember the games we played?" The princess looked up at him through her tears. Her crying softened a little as she heard his familiar voice. "You don't have to sing their song," Ben said gently. "Sing our song, the one we made together." Ben began to hum the simple lullaby he had sung to her that first night, the same tune that had calmed her chaos and brought her peace. But this time, he didn't sing it alone. Princess Lirleth began to harmonize with him, adding her own Zephyrian notes to his human melody. The sound that came from her was not the traditional song of unity. It was something new, something that had never been heard in the sacred hall before. The imperial crystal began to respond, but not in the way anyone expected. The imperial crystal began to sing. It was not the pure, single note that everyone expected. Instead, the ancient crystal created a symphony of sounds and lights that had never been heard before in the sacred hall. Princess Lirleth's hybrid song, mixing human melody with Zephyrian harmony, flowed into the crystal and came back transformed into something magnificent. The massive crystal pulsed with waves of color that told a story. Ben could see images in the light, a baby taking her first steps, a child learning to laugh, a young person facing challenges and growing stronger. The crystal was showing them the journey of life itself, with all its ups and downs, joys and sorrows. "Impossible," whispered High Counselor Xanthus, his face pale with shock. "The crystal has never responded like this before." Princess Lirleth stopped crying and stared up at the beautiful display above her. She clapped her hands and giggled, adding her own notes to the crystal's song. Each sound she made created new patterns of light that danced across the halls. Walls that the assembled Zephyrians stood in amazed silence. Many of them had tears running down their faces, something that had never happened during a traditional trial. The crystal's song was touching something deep inside them, awakening feelings. They had forgotten they could have. "What is happening?" Emperor Valdris asked, his voice filled with wonder. Dr. Lisa Park was frantically taking notes on her tablet. "The crystal is responding to the emotional content of the princess's song," she explained. "Traditional Zephyrion. Harmony is mathematically perfect, but emotionally flat. The princess is combining that perfection with human emotion, creating something entirely new." The song grew stronger as Princess Lireleth gained confidence. She began to include sounds that Ben had taught her, the rhythm of his heartbeat when she slept on his chest, the laughter they shared during their games. Even the gentle, scolding voice he used when she was being naughty. All of it became part of her song. The imperial crystal responded to each emotion with different colors and patterns. Joy created golden spirals. Love made soft blue waves. Playful mischief sparked with green and silver. The traditional judges of the trial stood speechless as the crystal painted the entire hall with the story of the princess's growth. "She is not singing the song of unity," one of the priests said uncertainly. "This is not how the trial is supposed to work." "No," said Emperor Valdris, slowly understanding dawning in his voice. "She is singing something better. She's singing the song of life." Ben watched from the edge of the platform as the little princess he had come to love performed her miraculous song. She was no longer the crying, distressed baby he had first met. She was confident, creative, and full of joy. She had become exactly what she was meant to be, a bridge between two worlds. High Counselor Zenthus stepped forward, his face dark with anger. "This is not our way," he declared. "The child has been corrupted by human influence. The crystal's reaction proves nothing except that our sacred traditions are being destroyed." "Look around you," Emperor Valdris said, gesturing to the crowd. "Look at our people's faces. When have you ever seen such joy, such wonder? The crystal is not being destroyed. It is being awakened." Indeed, the Zephyrians in the hall were experiencing emotions they had never felt before. Children who had been perfectly obedient all their lives were jumping up and down with excitement. Adults who had followed rigid harmony for centuries were laughing and crying at the same time. "This chaos will be the end of our civilization," Zenthus protested. "Without perfect harmony, we will become no better than primitive savages." "Maybe perfect harmony was never the goal," Ben said, stepping onto the platform to pick up Princess Lireleth. She immediately snuggled into his arms, still humming her beautiful song. "Maybe the goal was always to grow and learn and become something better." The crystal's song began to change, growing softer and more peaceful. Princess Lireleth yawned, tired from her great performance. But the lights in the crystal continued to swirl gently, as if it was singing her a lullaby. Emperor Valdris approached the platform, his eyes fixed on his daughter. "She has passed the trial," he announced. "Not in the traditional way, but in a way that is far more meaningful. She has shown us that true harmony is not the absence of discord, but the integration of all experiences into something greater." "You cannot mean to accept this," Zenthus said desperately. "The old ways have served us for thousands of years." "The old ways made my daughter sick," the Emperor replied firmly. "The new way, the human way, made her well. The choice is clear." "Captain?" Jake Miller stepped forward with his diplomatic team. "Your Majesty, does this mean you accept our offer of friendship between our peoples?" "More than friendship," Emperor Valdris said with a smile. "I offer partnership. Let our children learn from each other. Let them create new songs, new harmonies, new ways of being that honor both our traditions." Ben looked down at Princess Lireleth, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Her soft breathing created tiny musical notes that seemed to make the crystal hum with contentment. "What about the princess?" Ben asked. "What happens to her now?" "She will be raised as she should be," the Emperor said. "With love, with play, with all the messy, beautiful chaos that helps children grow." And you, Ben Harris, will be her teacher and guide? If you are willing. Ben felt his heart swell with happiness. I would be honored, Your Majesty. 6 months later, the royal palace had become a very different place. Human teachers worked alongside Zephyrian educators, teaching children from both species to sing, play, and learn together. Princess Liraleth had become the symbol of this new cooperation, a living bridge between two worlds. Ben stood in the nursery, now expanded to accommodate dozens of human and Zephyrian children. They were playing a game he had invented that combined Earth Tag with Zephyrian light patterns. The sound of their laughter filled the crystal halls, and the palace itself seemed to glow with happiness. Ready for another song? Ben asked Princess Liraleth, who was now walking and talking in her unique blend of languages. Yes, Ben, she said, clapping her hands. Sing the happy song. As Ben began to hum their special lullaby, Princess Liraleth joined in with her harmonies. Around them, children from two different worlds played together, learned together, and grew together. The future had never looked brighter.